So when you realised you were pregnant, what were you thinking, feeling? How did you deal with it?
Well, I became a Rasta at the age of 15, a Rastafarian, in case you wonder what is a Rasta, a Rastafarian. And we certainly did not believe in abortion. You know, back in the 70s, every single Sundays, and the 60s growing up, every Sunday you'd have a war film on. I just thought about how people used to really suffer in those days. We're not even in the war. So I thought, this is a life. Well, I don't know what I'm going to do, but this is a life. I then called him, you know, met up with him after school once, and I told him, I think I'm pregnant. And he said, get rid of it. And I said, well, I don't believe in that. You've raped me, now you want me to commit murder on top of it. And he says, you won't be committing the murder, the child is not even developed yet. And I said, there is a child inside of me and it has a heart. The child has a heartbeat and you want me to get rid of it because of what you've done to me. He could not understand and he says, you're going to get me into a lot of trouble. And I said, oh, so you haven't got me into a lot of trouble. I have to do my GCSE, I have to study, and I couldn't even study because of what you've done to me. And you've ruined everything I was supposed to be doing my exams, and you've ruined the whole thing. And I said, no, everyone's going to know what you've done. And he goes, no one's going to believe you. Who's going to believe you? They see us together, they've seen us together growing up for years. So who's going to believe you?
What were you most frightened about when you were pregnant? Was it your parents finding out, or what your friends would think?
Everything. I was worried about what my parents are going to think, what my aunts and uncles are going to think, what my dad's going to think, what my stepdad's going to think. My stepdad's even was pretty awful man, and he was very vile. He was very foul with his mouth, you know. So I didn't want the verbal abuse from him.
What did your parents say when they found out?
Just before I got pregnant, I had 1 month. I just started, a month before I got pregnant, I had a period. So I didn't even realise it was a proper period. I had a spotting. So I wasn't even actually sure whether I was pregnant or not. And it wasn't until I was about 5 months when I started developing, you know, my breast started developing and I felt my body changing, and there was a little bump, and then afterwards I just started trying to hide it by wrapping my stomach, tying it up, and I hope it would all go away, I think.
When did your parents find out? Did you tell them eventually? Or?
Wow. When I was 8 months, when I couldn't conceive it anymore. And all of a sudden, this baby just decides to stretch and develop. And my belly just went, whoop, you know, from looking like 5 months to proper 8 months. And I was like, my gosh, I'm in trouble now. And I cried all night, and my mum, I'd locked my bedroom door, and she broke it down and came in, and she got a shock of her life. And she said, I've got to have an abortion. And she said, how many months are you? And I told her, and she screamed.
What was your labour experience like? Did you have any support?
Oh no. I remember going on the bus to Croydon, and my mum was with me to go and do some shopping, and my waters broke on the bus. And that was the most embarrassing. And she said, you would have to. It's like, you're a disgrace. How could you? And the bus had to turn to the hospital, you know, drive down the road with the hospital with everybody on it. I was like, oh no. When I got into the hospital, there was this black nurse, and she came up to me and she said, you're a disgrace. You're not getting pregnant at your age. She just left me in this room, and then afterwards she spoke to my mum. And she came back and she said, your mum's going. She said, your mum said you're a disgrace to her because you've got yourself pregnant at this age. And she said, I'm going to have to examine you. to see if you'd have so many centimetres you're dilated. She rammed her hand inside of me, and I'll never forget it. I screamed with such excruciating pain. And she said, when you were having sex, you were enjoying it then, you know? So this pain should be nothing to you.
So she was punishing you?
She was punishing me.
Did you give birth alone?
When you say alone...
Were you... Did you get help? Did your mum come back?
No, nobody. I was with 4 nurses, and they put me on this ward with 20 beds, and there was nobody there, and I was there for hours and hours. I was in 40 hours in labour, and I was screaming in agony, and I was just in there. They just left me there for hours. Then when it was time for me to deliver, I never felt so much pain in all my life. I mean, the labour pain was bad then, but now this child's coming out, I started punching, screaming, slapping the nurses, and you know, one nurse kept putting her. I don't know if when you've ever been pregnant, you could smell everything.
Yeah. And
she kept putting her face so close to me, and she had really bad breath. And she kept saying, "It's going to be all right. It's going to be all right." And I just punched her so hard, trying to take her breath out of my face. And next minute, they were tying me down. And so they tied both my arms down, both my legs, and I gave birth. And it was the most horrific time.
I'm guessing you were getting flashbacks to the rape while you were giving birth.
Flashback of everything. And I just, you know, because of the pain and everything, it was just, you just let loose.
When you had your baby the first time, how did you feel?
Well, I couldn't believe that this beautiful child had come out of my body. You know, this beautiful baby with such a lovely smile. She was just so beautiful. And I thought, the hands, you just spend hours looking at the hands, the feet, you know, the bottom, the belly, every part of her. You kind of examine this child. Is this child real? You know, and you keep looking at the child, every part of her. And even though they wrap up the baby, because you're supposed to have baby clothes and everything, and I had nothing. Wrapped her up in this bundle of towel and everything, and sheets. And every minute I'd unbundle and look again. And I'd go, wow. Tie her all up again.
Did she remind you of the rapist? They always say that if you have a baby that way, it reminds you of the rape. Did that happen?
Looking back, you're asking me to look back at 35 years. I can't remember that, because as far as I can remember, that this is a child that I've given birth to, this beautiful baby, and I'm glad that I didn't have an abortion. That's all I can really remember. And I've made up my mind to have this child, you know. So I think once I made my mind up that this is my responsibility, this is my child, I didn't think of the rape, that the person who's raped me. Am I going to hate this child, or am I going to come against this child, or does this child even look like him? You know, I kind of pushed him aside completely.
What's your relationship like with your daughter now?
Oh my goodness, it's absolutely wonderful. Well, it was from the beginning, because I don't believe that I was really loved as a child growing up. So this was my love. She loved me automatically. She had no one else to love. She has me to love. Growing up, there's an abundance of love, isn't there? That she gave undeniably.
Did having a baby, particularly in those very difficult circumstances, affect your chances of getting a job and getting on in life?
Not getting a job, because my mum decided that, you know, because I've had this child, you're going to have to provide for this child. And she said, you're going to have to find a job. And at 3 months, I had to find a job straight away. And she was put into childminding, and I had to go out to work. And I remember working at the Royal Society of Science. And that was my first job in Piccadilly. I did really well, yeah.
Did it stop you finding the man of your dreams?
Well, my mum and my dad and my stepdad and my uncles and my aunts and my friends and everybody told me, no man's going to ever want you now you've got a child. And that used to kind of really bug me a lot. And so, you know, and if they do want you, they only want you for one thing. So that when they put those two words in my head, they only want you for one thing. After I've been raped already, no man's going to have me for one thing. And so, yeah, it kind of stopped my mentality of thinking I'm going to have the man of my dreams, definitely, because that was sown in my head from my parents 24/7. Look what you've done, you've messed up your life. Look what you've done, you'll never have a man. Look what you've done, they'll never want you with a child.
How do you feel when people justify abortion in case of rape? It's probably the commonest argument in favour of abortion or in case of rape. How do you feel about that?
I don't think it's an excuse for anybody to have an abortion. I mean, I didn't have an abortion, and my child is absolutely beautiful, and I don't think it justified to take a life. I mean, when someone's raped, they morally take something, a part of you, away with them anyway. Spiritually, mentally, physically, a part of that, you know, you're defiled, so that's gone. So to have an abortion on top of it, it's taking a life, and you've got to live with two different types of guilt. You've got to deal with the rape, and you've got to deal with I call it murder.
If you were talking to a woman who's in a similar position, who'd become pregnant that way, what hope could you give her? What would you say to her?
I would explain to her that life is just beginning. It isn't the end. Life has just begun because you've created a human being. You know, it's like, how would you like someone to take your life because they don't think you're worthy to be on this earth?
You're a committed Christian. How has your faith really influenced your decision making, your life? Can you forgive the people who've hurt you? Not just the rapist, or the people who rejected you.
You know, I was thinking about it a week ago. When we said we're going to do this recording, and my daughter said, you know, she would like to find her father, and I thought that'd be really, really great. She said, would I help her? And I said yes. And she said, what would you say? And I said to her that I would tell him I forgive him. I forgive him for everything, because what I've heard in the grapevine that he's now alcoholic on the streets. And I do believe that when Christ talks about vengeance is mine, God knows a way to deal with these things when people do things like that. And so I do believe if anyone is sitting in front of me and they say they want to have an abortion because they have been raped, I will be able to tell them that it isn't the end. I have now found the man of my dreams. I was able to study. I'm now a qualified counsellor. I'm a qualified interior designer, and I'm a qualified hairdresser and beautician, you know, and so much more. And I found the man of my dreams, which they said it was impossible. And he loves my daughter so much. They have a great relationship, which is really, really good. Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.